Hello and welcome to another episode of BL Can Save You. This is Nana.
Hey guys, it is me. It is Ali.
Hello, this is Elle. I'm not quite sure what I am. I'm probably a robot and definitely a nerd.
All right, cool. Now with those introductions out of the way, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. We have a very new and exciting topic to talk about today that we ran a poll on the official Twitter page. So thank you all who participated. Y'all some freaks. No, I'm just kidding. But before we get into that, I do have some housekeeping. I'm going to just try to run through it as fast as I can. So AB Studios from Vietnam has announced that they are releasing 3 new VL titles for 2022. Melody in Me is a music themed VL. They didn't quite say musical, but they said music themed. That's coming out in June or July. Then there's a series called The Letters, and that one has no air date time or month. And then the third one is Rin. They said at the end of 2022. The premiere of Not Me happened on Sunday with Off Gun, Mod, and Sing. Gen Y is slated for the end of this year to premiere. There's a Korean BL that was released from Strongberry. It's a pay-per-view. You can purchase that on Vimo, and it's called Between Complete and Incomplete. Let's see. Oh, My Love Mixed Up from Japan is now available on Viki with full subs, and also My Beautiful Man is there as well. New Korean BL Behind Cut set to premiere on December 28th. On a new platform called Heavenly. It is, when I downloaded it was still in the beta, so I'm not sure if it'll be ready, but sure, they said it should be ready by the 28th. I'm not sure about subs either, but hopefully they'll get that situated. Nine Na Production, which is the same studio that produced Checkout, is also having a new project called Amadao Jinja. Sorry if I am pretty sure I messed all that up. But it's a collaboration with Japan. And also, there's a gay reality series it's in the same vein as The Bachelor called The Bromance. I know it's not the series, but I mentioned it here because it is related. And that's airing on Gagulala. They also have a new BL called Physical Therapy, and that will be airing on January 22nd. So that is it for all the housekeeping.
Did you mention Paint with Love?
Oh, no, I didn't. But Paint with Love is also on Gagulala.
I name it Pain with Love. This show is so slow.
Ella's not a fan.
I don't actually think so. I think it's good pacing, personally. But we're not here to talk about that today.
No, we're not.
All right. Let's keep on track.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Paint with Love, so Paint with Love is gonna be on Fridays. Not only Gaga Ulalala, but it's happening on Friday. So we have Not Me on Sundays, Bad Buddy we still get it on Friday, and we have Paint with Love on Friday as well. And we have a few more coming. I know that Enchanti has finished filming, and the Vice Versa, which has in Jimmy and some new guy, will start filming after that. So literally we're going into 2022 with a packed schedule. So yeah, so as Mana said, we have a lot of things coming our way. So guys, just do what you gotta do to keep up. You remember how we struggled last year? That's perfectly fine. All right, so today, what we'll be discussing today is something quite different than what we've usually done in the past. And that is we're venturing into the world of AUs, people. AUs. Now, if you know anything about AUs, they get crazy. So today's topic is Omegaverse. Anybody know what Omegaverse is? Mana?
Well, I know a little bit about it. So I
give us
don't know. I don't know how much in detail you want to go.
No, okay. So for the people who are listening who might not know what Omegaverse is, give us a brief definition of it. What is Omegaverse?
A summary of Wikipedia. So Omegaverse is a what is it? It's a fictional world in which there are three, I don't know if they're genders. Yeah, they're sort of genders, additional genders, alpha, beta, and omega, and that mimics what you would see in maybe wolf behaviors. So humans behaving like packs of wolves or dogs or something like that. And the dominant characteristic are the alphas, the very submissive characteristic is the omega, and then the beta are just like regular humans. So at least that's the basic structure. And I don't know, Mana, do you want to go into more detail maybe? Like there's something very specific about the Omegaverse that's not like the regular world.
Right. So there is something very specific where yes, there is, the dominant, there's the alpha and things like that nature, but it also has a lot to deal with pheromones, like odors, not odors, like it's like you're wearing allspice all day.
That's the right word, is odors.
Scenting. It's all about scenting.
Yeah, it's called scenting.
Scenting out your true mate.
Yeah. Also, it goes into the realm of what is called mpreg. So while you have like Omegaverse and in sense and things of that nature, also there's a kind of subgenre even in that genre where it's like men can get pregnant. And that seems to be very popular in the Omegaverse realm. It's very interesting, just given the fact that even regular normal childbirth sounds not pleasant. So male childbirth also sounds very much unpleasant. But that really that's really the most popular in the genre. Now. The ones that I read do not include that. That's not really my cup of tea.
Right. Because that's what I was about to say. Like Omegaverse doesn't only do mpreg. So all right. So this is three different versions. This is three different definitions of Omegaverse thing. Because the Omegaverse that I know, it really deals with ABOs, alpha, beta, omegas, and you might have gammas. You might have deltas, this, that, and the third. So the basic structure that I'm aware of, it's just the weakest link in the pack or the weakest link in the book, which is usually the omega. They tend to have more feminine features, being soft and not being able to protect themselves. You have a good number of Omegaverses out there where omegas have alpha-like tendencies or beta-like tendencies where they're not necessarily weak, they're just omegas. They were born as to be protected. They were born with special abilities. It depends on what you're reading, this, that, and the third. So it doesn't always end in mpreg, sadly, because we love a good twist. And when I first started reading Omegaverse novels, the mpreg was a damn good twist, because I'm like, if only men could get pregnant in real life, maybe there would be better healthcare for women.
I mean, not gonna
That's
argue.
a fair point.
I'm like, so yeah, but quick question though. So this whole topic of Omegaverse, Mana and Elle were really the ones that wanted to talk about it. It was their idea. So because it was your idea, I just want to know from you two, what really prompted you to want to talk about Omegaverse this week? Like, what was what made you think, oh, this could be something good to share on the podcast, or this might be an interesting topic this week, or did you see something in a BL that reminded you of Omegaverse? Like, do you see similar? What is it? What did you want to talk about Omegaverse today? Who wants to go first? Lana?
I'll go first. The reason why I kind of wanted to talk about it is because, one, we hadn't discussed it on the podcast before, and it is interesting to me, just to kind of like read this different type of manhwa, or just wherever you find it, and just kind of like explore those aspects, because it is really interesting just seeing how the stories are written, and just like how it kind of mirrors, not real life because it doesn't, but like just kind of mirrors like what people think are feminine traits and what people think are masculine traits, and like, and just kind of go into that a bit more. And also, some of the stories are interesting and good. There's like, we can talk about just the example that I'm reading, but Al can kind of also jump in and think about, or not think about, but why they wanted to discuss Omegaverse too. This is something that don't hear. We do hear a lot about, but it's also being misrepresented, right? Because like it's also kind of like something that people laugh about, like, oh, you read Omegaverse, and it's just like anything else. There's good Omegaverse stories and there's bad Omegaverse stories, and I don't think it should be discriminated against. So that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it.
For me, there's a whole bunch of things to unpack to Omegaverse. So there's the fact that it tends to talk about genders, right? So you have people, mainly the stories that I've read are male, like boy love, right? So there are alpha, betas, and omegas that are females, but they're not really, I haven't seen a lot of stories just about females or with females, like, for the most part. And this is why mpreg has been prevalent for me, because a lot of the stories are by boy love, and therefore sometimes pretty much every story I've read had some sort of a pregnancy or fear of pregnancy. But there's this gender idea, right? There's the fact that our biology can control us to some extent. And as a trans person, that is very much true. There's this idea of gender roles. So the alpha is always the protector kind of person and always very strong, at least in a lot of the stories. Not always, but in a lot of stories. There's the fact that it's the only place where male are allowed to be carrying. So they have offspring, they take care of them. There's this nesting behavior, and they can get pregnant, so they can actually know what it is. The bond that is between the two also is linked to their offspring. So there's really, I don't know, these are stories where I found like a lot of the time men are represented in respect to their offspring in a different manner than usual. So I find it layers, and then it's a very sexualized world as well, because you're driven by heat and rut and all this animalistic side of it. So it's, I find that there's so many aspects to it, and a lot of the time it's also considered as a bit of a guilty pleasure, because it's kind of this, it's, we don't talk about Omegaverse, like there's this kind of, I don't know why it's considered something that's not, I mean, maybe I know why, because a lot of stories also have non-consensual things, just because they're under that rut or that heat kind of thing. Their bodies are controlled by the biology, and so they do things that are not consensual. Like there's a whole bunch of things associated with the universe, or that particular narrative, that I find interesting. Some aspects I think are really great, and some aspects I think are really bad. And I think that's that, like there's a lot of controversy around that specific universe as well, because of these different poles that it has, like different aspects that it has. So I find it just really interesting. That should be the short part.
So I'm glad that you mentioned guilty pleasure, because that's actually one of the questions that I have. Omegaverse can be problematic. Like, I was dead ass gonna go into that next. It can be problematic because of the themes discussed, like you said. A lot of it is non-consensual. There's a lot of rape happening left, right, and center. Like, it is what it is. Call a spade, it's rape. Omegas can be taken advantage of by other members of their packs, or by they're the first victims or the first ones attacked in like pack wars and stuff like that. They're kidnapped, they're raped. In some cases, some of them may have special abilities, so they're abused for that, they're manipulated. Even the people that are quote unquote supposed to be protecting them abuse them. So there's a lot of abuse, rape, non-consent, forceful impregnation, which is again, a very interesting thing to write about. And you said specifically that it's a guilty pleasure, and that's the word I like to use. There was this, it's a sentiment that I hold, but I saw where on like an essay format, like a video essay format YouTuber did like a YouTube video about it. I didn't get the chance to watch all of it, so I'm not really sure what their point was, but the topic of that that video was good queer content can be problematic, or good queer content can be boring, something of that sort. Because when people want to do queer content or any content that is strays away from what's acceptable on mainstream, the request or the demand or what you usually see is that these characters are painted in these angelic lights, when queer people can be bad people too. Bad things can happen to queer people too. There can be weird, there are broader themes that exist outside of coming out and acceptance of self that can be investigated. They can be villains, they can be anti-heroes, they can be this, they can be that, but they only stick to one set of themes. So is it a guilty pleasure because it explores that spectrum of doing full-blown queer representation, or is it a guilty pleasure because of the problematic themes such as non-con, abuse, stuff like that? Why would you say it's a guilty pleasure? What really makes it a guilty pleasure for you? Because a guilty pleasure is something that you should not like. I really shouldn't like it. I have a problem with this in my everyday day-to-day life. I cannot stand this. I argue about it all the time, but it's something you hide away and do. What's the real guilty pleasure aspect of it?
So for me, I approached it mainly like as I heard people talk about it in these terms, or talk about how bad it was and how how problematic it was. And so I just got curious. So I really went in without a strong opinion about it. And I don't think it's a guilty pleasure. Like, there are stories about AOB that I won't read, just because the themes are too dark for me. But I think it's potentially a really good way for people to explore this, or to process things that have happened to them, or ideas of gender or power dynamics. Some of the things that as people born in female bodies can't do, right? So we can work through it in that universe. So I personally I think it's a guilty pleasure in the sense that some of it is very like sexy. There's a lot of sex scenes. It's a lot of like really kind of so that part is a little bit guilty pleasure, because it's like, oh, it's a little porn. it's a little bit of, and not that there's anything wrong with this, but that would be more like that for me. But I think there's very strong opinions about it. So that's probably why people think of it as something to feel guilty about, because I think people question whether or not liking something that's dark, liking something that's about abuse, liking something that's about about animalistic behaviors, especially for females, right? We're always told to tone down sexuality. I was born in a female body, so I feel okay talking about this as if I was still a female. But yeah, we're always like shut down. Like female sexuality is never a good thing. So at least through this, we get to have those like moments where we can experience something different, something open, something free, and even something dark. But people don't like to think of themselves as liking these things, right? There's a lot of stigma associated with that.
So, Mana, same question to you. Is Omegaverse a guilty pleasure for you? What specifically do you like about it that makes you come back, keep going back to read these stories? Aside from the smut, let's be honest here. Aside from the smut, what is it about Omegaverse that makes you into it?
So I actually wasn't into it before. I was actually in another group chat, and my friends had been reading, were providing me all these like different links and stuff, and I just was like, I just didn't take it seriously. There was this one though that I did enjoy. It's called Love Shuttle. And the thing that I liked about Love Shuttle versus, I mean, yes, it is very smutty, but other than that, I'll be honest. But what I liked about it more was the fact that like the Omega in the story didn't look like your typical Omega. Like he wasn't like drawn as like super feminine. He was drawn, just like a normal dude, I guess I would say. He did kind of, I guess, like I mentioned that his chest was a little like more like women shaped. I just didn't notice that, but okay.
He had mad boobs.
I mean, I guess a little bit. But it was more the fact that they would talk about things. It was very like, hey, I want to like be in a relationship with you. It was actually a sweet story, like given outside all that smut. It was, very like, they had a lot of communication in their relationship. The alpha made sure that his partner was comfortable. It was just a lot of positive things that I saw in that particular manhwa that I was reading, that I enjoyed, because it was like different from what I had heard. Because I had heard like a lot of bad stuff. I was just like, no, that's not something I'm ever touching. And then I gave this story a chance. And I really just found myself enjoying just how sweet they were with each other. It wasn't like that in the beginning because it was like they were two very like stubborn men. But the way that they took care of each other was really nice.
Okay, which actually connects marries into what something else said earlier about men in this universe being free to show care to their partners without the I don't want to misquote what you said, but that's you said something like that earlier, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're like, I mean, and Mana said the same thing. Like they can be sweet to each other, they can be caring to each other. Again, some of it is driven by the biology, like that instinct to care and to protect your Omega or something like that, and that bond that they have. But yeah, there's, they're even like this one. I read that manhwa because they recommended it, and that manhwa actually, they're excited about getting married. Like, it's so. I mean, I know a lot of men are excited about getting married and having a partner and so on, but it's so stomped down by society that you shouldn't care about those things. You shouldn't be excited about having a family. Like, we still haven't moved on that far from some of these like very binary gender roles from the 50s. So I kind of like that exploration. I mean, yeah.
Well, for me, why I like Omegaverse as a subgenre in the whole erotic fiction, you know, AU fan fiction written sphere is the smut, it's the porn. I'm sorry, it is what it is. I'm not gonna front. I'm not gonna sit here and talk about like, oh, they're so sweet to each other. I mean, whatever, but they fuck like unapologetically. They just get to it. I don't care. I'm just putting that out there. That's why I'm here. I don't know about anybody else, um, but that's why I'm here because typically, and I feel like, well, getting moving from the baser of that all to make it more logical, like jokes aside, you growing up reading romance novels and where romance novels of the past followed a specific format. Back then when I was a child, I wouldn't have known how problematic many of those themes were, and but also how it made me view men in terms of in certain lights when it came to certain things, and also connecting it with reality and how men were in reality. When I started reading Omega Verse, or typically when I started reading fan fiction, because fan fiction is predominantly a female space, it's written mostly by female, it's always been a predominant female space. If that makes anybody mad, go drink some water and leave me alone. But it is, and it was so interesting for me at the time to find a space where women had the upper hand in dictating the narrative, and they took themselves out of the picture and they made it, because there are Omegaverse novels out there that are heterosexual. I wouldn't even call Omegaverse heterosexual because there's nothing really straight about it, whether it's a man or a woman. It's a weird bunch of mess when you really get into the nitty-gritty. But for me, I just liked that outside of the traditional format of romance novels and how sex is usually presented and given to females, here we have women writing about it in different ways. And in my head, as Elle said, with the whole aspect of them following their baser instinct, like the animalistic instinct of just needing to mate, needing to protect, being the driving force behind why their initial sexual contacts would not necessarily be the best, but then you see the care and the acknowledgement of how wrong it is, because regardless of you being a literal animal, because most of Omegaverse is centered around mythical like creatures like werewolves, vampires, nymphs, this that, and the third, you see the acknowledgement of the fact that that wasn't right, what they did to their partner, the genuine effort being put in to correct mistakes or whatever, and to build a healthy relationship. And I mean, some people might see that take as trying to make it seem better than it was or better than what it is, and not being really blunt or honest about what it is, but that's literally what it is. It was literally fan fiction on a whole has always been women taking control of the narrative. Because have you ever read a woman that was written by a man, or even a man that was written by a man?
Yeah.
Men are not the best authors, and female authors have had to survive and thrive in only one industry. But now here you come with this whole portion where they're allowed to write about sci-fi, they can write about fiction, they can write about fantasy, they can write about murder, mystery, everything. They can exist outside of the romance novel sphere, and I really liked that. I like that whole taking control of the narrative, and I liked the switch of, instead of this being a woman, let's just make this a man. I feel like that was just a power play, in my opinion. I don't have the words for it, but something about it just really just made it connect to me. And like I said earlier, like reading with some amount of like understanding beside outside of just reading for the sake of reading it, which is i.e. the smut. Seeing men, let's take it from an mpreg perspective, seeing men with the ability to get pregnant and then seeing how they're cared for while pregnant really makes you think about real life, to acknowledge that if men in real life really could, if they could see periods, if they could get pregnant, if they could do this, if they could go through things that female bodies go through, women would have better, there would be better healthcare options for women. As Elle said, because the whole idea of having different bodily functions in this male's body, which then makes them not so much of a man, but also not a man, but also not a woman, because they're a hybrid sort of thing. There would also be better healthcare for people who for trans people. There would be better politics around how women and trans people are treated in it just makes you realize a lot of things. But that was the nice academic as I could make it journal answer. I'm here because of the smut. Okay,
but that's okay too. I'm not pretending. I think it's actually really powerful to use things that people like, whether it's a guilty pleasure or it's darkness or it's themes that are kind of uncomfortable but still attractive, or just plain smut. Like, I think it's great to use that and still weave a story and pass on themes and explore things. I think that's what it's interesting.
And it makes me feel powerful, because like as a woman, like, as Elle mentioned earlier, your sexuality is often reduced to nothingness, right? You're not allowed to be a sexual being, this and the third. But with fan fictions and with omega verses and stuff like that, and with this specific genre or subgenre where people are bold enough to explore themes that we're ashamed of liking, the fact that I can freely read this and I can freely like it and I can freely talk about it is a big FU to the patriarchy. You know what I mean? It makes me feel damn good. But yeah, so that's that, that covers that. But now, moving on from that topic of the conversation, how did you get into Omegaverse? Like, how did you end up discovering Omegaverse? For me, it was YOE has always been Omegaverse in my opinion, but that wasn't my introduction. Back when the internet wasn't as censored as it was when I was still in primary school, quite possibly still, no, like in the first grade and so forth, you could find erotic novels online. I've been reading erotica ever since I was a child. Like, I was literally like 6 or 5 or 7 when I was talking with the computer and finding these things. So I've been introduced to these like highly, sexual contents early, which unfortunately, thank God the internet is a place where it is today, where majority of content is censored. So no child has to be exposed to certain things too early, or without proper supervision and this and the third. My mother did the best that she could, but she wasn't the type of policing parent. She wanted us to learn technology. She gave us free reign to play games, to explore online, this and the third. Her only thing was, if people started talking to us, we would let her know, okay, you have strangers online. But yeah, so these erotic novels that I would find online were my actual introduction to Omegaverse. That on YOE ever since I was like 6, 7, somewhere thereabout. But how did you guys get introduced to Omegaverse? How did you find it?
Nana, do you want to?
Oh, sure. Yeah, like I said, I was presented it by my friends. I was just like, I don't think I would ever read that. And then they said, oh, here's this one that I think you'd like. I think this is where you fit. And so that's when I started reading. That's when I started reading Love Shuttle. That's pretty much it. It's very boring. It's a very boring origin story.
Well, okay.
It's a quick one. It's not a boring one. It's a quick
And what about you, Elle? How did you get into it? How did you
one.
find it?
Well, I'm old, so I definitely did not know about this until not that long ago, because before that I didn't grow up with the internet. And it's not until I got into BL. So I got into BL around the time I was questioning my gender and a whole bunch of other things. And so I kind of fell into this and then met a whole bunch of people. And through discussions, people talked about this Omegaverse thing and how awful it was and yuck and some people like, yeah, there was like I got presented with a whole bunch of stuff about it, people's opinions, and some people liked it, some people really disliked it. And so, like all good scientists, I was like, well, I need to know more about this. So I did a very deep dive, too deep maybe, into Omegaverse. I started, reading about it, learning about the different things and how it was built and where it's coming from. And then I went on AO3 and I found a whole bunch of stories. And and some of it was things that I started reading and then stopped because I couldn't really go past some of the most problematic aspects. And then some stories that I also found where people actually made a point of, making a slightly different version of it. That's more to my liking. So again, this is not at all a judgment. Like, people can like whatever they want. It's just that for me, I had to kind of go around and learn about it because I was curious. And so, yeah, it's not that exciting either.
Okay. But I mean, it's short. It's not boring. It's just a quick story. Let me just use that one back at you. But like, I'm glad you mentioned it. It's no problem. So I'm glad you mentioned AO3 because that is a platform that you can, if you guys don't know what AO3 is, it's Archive of Our Own. I do believe it is a female run fan fiction site. It's been around since forever. I still don't know how to use it. Don't ask me how to navigate it. It's not listen, I never really gave it a chance until recently. I've been going through it. So, but it is like you can find fanfics there mile a dozen. So aside from AO3 and Wattpad, Mana, do you know anywhere else that people can find Omegaverse themed books and stuff like, or manga, manhwa?
So there's some on like the official platforms. So I know Love Shuttle is on Lesbian Comics. So if you go on Webtoon, Tapas, any of the like manhwa apps, they have like certain stories there. If you are like more about like not particularly like this type, there's also, you could go into Barnes and Noble. They have different, like if you want to dip your toes in, you can start with just like the wolf stories. That's like where it kind of branches off. Like, where people turn into wolves and stuff, and they have like packs. So that's where you can find it as well. If you want to go the more like a little bit more traditional route. But most of it I have through like legal websites. So like webcomics, Webtoons, Tapas, and Lesbian. I don't know, I'm sure if I'm pronouncing the last one right, but yeah.
Okay, what I want to say is that all of the websites are legal. Just because, all right, so remember that it's a fanfic, and I want to be clear about something because this is also a current topic that's happening in BL land right now, or it relates to it with the whole Not Me being based off of, what is it, EXO? It was an EXO fanfic or whatever. Just because something is a fanfic. GOT7, right? So just because something is a fanfic doesn't mean it is not an official body of work. It doesn't mean it isn't it, and it also doesn't mean it isn't an original body of work, because it's a fanfic. And some fanfics don't even have to be based on anything. They just fall under the category of fanfics because of how unofficial and the themes they are, and the themes that are presented are typically found in a fanfic space, in my opinion. But I mean, even if I base the physicality of a character off of a known person, it doesn't mean that the story has anything to do with them, right? So when you said official platform, it kind of made me think I have to include this because of what the because of the conversation that's currently happening now. Wattpad is an official website. AO3 is an official website. These are real life people. There's a next platform that does Chinese novels, novel update.
Yeah, novel updates.
Novel update. There are some original stories on novel update as well. Not everything on novel update is a translation of a book that was already published by an author. So they are official websites, and I want you guys to know that, like, I want people to stop looking at work that is classified or categorized under fanfic as being unoriginal work. People sit down and they build entire universes, come up with entire political structures, come up with entire family history lines, this, that, and the third. They build entire universes, all of this extra stuff, but you're reducing their work to as unoriginal content. I'm not gonna lie, when I saw that Not Me thing this weekend, it really made me upset because it didn't have anything.
Too.
It didn't have anything to do with GOT7, and here you are calling this woman's work blood, sweat, and tears copied work. So are you trying to tell me that the GOT7 members are in a gang? They were up to some gang shit? How you know that? They're planning a coup, a lèse-majesté on the Korean government. What was happening there? Like, stop reducing people's hard work to nothingness because of some internal dissatisfaction. And I wrote this down while Elle was talking just now. Content is allowed to exist, and it doesn't all have to be unproblematic for it to be valid. Problematic content can exist. It's fine. You see it as problematic. To someone else, it's entertainment. To someone else, it's not problematic. Different types of contents are allowed to exist. Just because you don't like something, and you're free to be vocal about not liking it, but please, for the love of God, stop reducing people's hard work to like nothingness. It really rubs me the wrong way. And it's because Mana mentioned the official. I remember the whole Not Me situation, because fanfics are valid. Okay, these people are more reliable than official published authors. Let me tell you that.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you. I didn't mean it that way.
I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to the listeners. I really wasn't talking to you. I was talking to the people that were listening. No, but yeah, guys. So like,
I think you hit on a really specific point, especially with Omegaverse. Omegaverse is typically fan fiction or manga, manhwa, but the yaoi type, which tends to be denigrated because it's work predominantly by females, right? So it has that like, oh, it's not worth it. It's like a, it's a hobby or whatever. It's the same as being a K-pop fan, like, oh, they're just like 15-year-old females or something like that, and you're dismissed instantly because it's viewed as something frivolous and not really worthy, right? It's not high literature, it's Omegaverse. So I think it also taps into that guilty pleasure or that thing that is not actually valued. But some work I like more than others, for sure. But I think it has actually a really interesting. I wasn't expecting to see a social commentary, a gender commentary, like to find depth into something that's basically disguised as smut, or not disguised. There's no disguise. It's just smut, right? But if you kind of look past the smut, it's and not just one story, but multiple, like the way the universe is built and what the themes are. I think it's much more interesting. At least as a construct, it's much more interesting than people give it credit for.
And what people tend to forget also is that a lot of popular YA novels, especially YA novels that get the opportunity to become movies, they started out as fanfics. And even if that specific novel didn't start out as a fanfic, the writers were originally fanfic writers. Let's use the Kissing Booth, for example. When I was in high school, I remember when all of the Kissing Booth books were written on Wattpad, right? I remember reading it as it was as the girl was writing it, and she was updating it week after week. Sometimes, 2 weeks would pass, 3 weeks would pass before you get a chapter update. But she wrote various different stories. It's just that was the one that really blew up. And on Wattpad used to be this space where you could insert images of people who would give you like inspiration, or like, this is who I picture when I write this character, or guys, listen to this song while you read this chapter. This was a vibe I was going for. This has always been a thing. So fanfics are valid, guys. They're valid bodies of work, please. Okay, moving on to the next topic on hand, where this Omegaverse situation is concerned. Which, I think Gen Z is also, I don't even like that term, in modern, like in new age, like on TikTok especially, they refer to this thing as submissive and breedable. Like, they will like ooey guys, like the ooey, like e-boys, or like e-girls, some e-girls as well. They would be like, because they're more on the soft side, it's termed as submissive and breedable. Babe, that's just this new age version of Omegaverse. That's just you calling this person an Omega. Yeah. But the new term is submissive and breedable. I'm like, okay. So a lot of y'all have
I feel like that's a bit cringy for me. Like, I could never, like, but like, I mean, it's fine. Like, however, like, people want to identify with it, it's cool. I just know for me, when I hear that, I'm just like, ooh.
Yeah, no, it's a huge turn off, but it just goes to show you that the evolution that things go through, like, nothing stays the same way forever, and also some things will always remain as they are. What they're called, though, will change. It's just basic evolution. But talking about that, I want to get into something spicy with this Omegaverse topic.
Oh, okay.
Which
Which
I think Elle knows where I'm going, but let's see. Which,
I don't know,
BL has major Omegaverse vibes? Mana, you go first.
Oh, I don't.
A lot of them.
I don't. Okay. I guess Two Moons too, but like one specific couple.
Fa and Wei.
Yeah.
Oh.
A little bit. Only because, like, YU is yeah, he's just very soft, and like he's just very like, please take care of me a little bit, and like, and Taiyu is like, just he's like he's attractive, he has like money, he's very like alpha-isk. I want to say, if that's a word. It's not, but whatever. I made one. So them for me are like, oh, okay, I can see it. This happening here. There probably is a lot of stories about them that way, though. Now that I think about it.
I think Omegaverse is just pushing that semi narrative even stronger. Like, it's like semi on steroids, basically, at least for me. So a lot of BL that have very strong, like a very small, soft kind of person, and then a dark and brooding, tall and much larger person tend to fall into that dynamic a little bit. Not always, but at least.
Yes, but the question was, which BL
gives
one major? So in your opinion, like, if knowing that, yes, BL is, semi, all of that good stuff, it's basically Omegaverse, truth be told. But which one, in your opinion, gives major Omegaverse vibes? Major, massive, like, there's no mistaking what this is. Like, if this were like a fictional universe, this quote unquote BL bottom would be pregnant already. Like, I rest my case. Like, no arguing this.
I have one, but Mana's gonna hate me.
Are you gonna
and then she's gonna send my blues after me.
I would say it. I because if you don't say it, I'm gonna say it, and I don't have a problem saying it.
Guys, I don't mean it. No, I do mean it, but don't hate me. But yeah, definitely Harmon Dean from Harmon Dean from Until We Meet Again have that dynamic for me. Well,
it's not just Farm. Well, you might see Farm and Dean. I actually see Win and Team. They give me massive Omega verse vibes.
That's surprising.
If this was a fictional universe, Team would be pregnant.
Yeah, I could sort of see that. I mean,
he would
be
pregnant. They would be a mated pair. Like, if this were a fictional universe, this would probably be a vampire AU. And Team would be pregnant. Like, he'd be pregnant 10 times over. I think there's even a alternate universe. I think Lazy Sheep wrote it. I don't know if a fan wrote it or Lazy Sheep wrote it, but in it, a few years in the future, Win is at his hotel that he inherited because his older brother is just a lazy piece of shit. So the parents gave him that inheritance, and Team they have 3 sons together. I think Lazy Sheep wrote an AU. They give mad Omega verse. I don't quote me. If it's not Lazy Sheep, it was probably a fan written version, but it was damn good. I'm like, yep, this actually makes sense. It's them, like, Win is an Alpha, Team is an Omega shit, and they would definitely exist in an mpreg universe.
I could sort of see it.
Actually, I could kind of see it now too, but I didn't think you were gonna say them. I honestly didn't. I thought you were gonna say Dean Farm too.
I don't really. The reason why I wouldn't say Dean Farm, is because technically I don't see Farm as an Omega or much of a submissive, because most of his characteristic traits and tendencies were coming from, what was the person before him called again? Right. So most of those initial characteristics and those traits were in my opinion, with the being excessively feminine, cute, this and the third. Farm to me as his own individual seems to be not much of an Omega, like still the submissive person in the pairing, but definitely not. They wouldn't fall under the Omega verse subgenres, in my opinion. Like In and Corn. What was
In Corn, yeah.
Yeah,
In Touch and Corn, yeah.
In Touch and Corn, yeah. So they would definitely be Omega verse, but because they were Dean and Farmer mirroring them from their past life, that's why I wouldn't really give them Omega verse. Like, if they had to live with their spirits forever, sure, def Omega verse. But when they sorted out that situation and their own personalities actually started seeping through somewhat, yeah, no, I wouldn't give them Omega verse, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're very Omega verse for me, but they're very Uke Seme. Like, they have that very.
I mean, I'll get them back. Yeah.
And I don't mean it in a bad way. It's not my favorite trope, is all. Like, it's just a preference. It's not my favorite thing. I do like that show. I like to like shows, but also criticize them. So please don't come at me. I'm nice, I promise. I still like it.
We like shows and we criticize them all the time. It's fine. Like, I don't know why people think I get upset all the time. I really don't.
But one that's interesting, and I think you guys might find it surprising, is Bon and Duen. And I sent
from My Engineer.
Yeah, and
yes,
there's this awesome AO3 AU that actually has Bon at the Omega. He's a power bottom, and it works.
I can see that.
Well, He's a needy little baby, and it works so good.
Let me tell you
It's
something.
just so good.
Let me tell you something.
Sorry.
Like, funny that Elle should say that, because what I wanted to, the next one that I would say falls into an Omegaverse, that could fall into Omegaverse if written right, would have been definitely Wire Use, would be both couples from Wire Use, specifically, you know, with Saint Tutor character being quote unquote the power bottom or whatever, even though technically the way Saint depicted that character on screen, there was no doubt in my mind who was getting their butt blown out. But you know, he could have been a power bottom or whatever. Even though I really hate even talking about that, but let's just run with the tropes for a second. But the second couple, what was their name again? What is it?
Sci-Fi Zone.
Oh,
Be
yeah,
careful.
Sci-Fi and Zon. Let me tell you something.
Be careful.
They could be an
Yum.
Omegaverse. They could be an Omegaverse, but Zon would not be the Omega. So what a lot of people don't want to acknowledge, because they like the whole height difference thing, they like the idea of the more aggressive partner being the bigger partner. You have a few Omega verses, well, I've read, I don't remember their names now, where the submissive and the Omega was actually the one you would look at and deem the alpha. And if I had to look at it from that very interesting twist of a perspective, their appearing I could see in an Omegaverse with Cypher being the Omega.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I don't like to admit it, but I could see that. I think it's. I think I like to. Okay. Sorry, my brain is going in all directions. So the story that Mana talked about, Love Shuttle, has an Omega that actually is mistaken for an Alpha, because with Omegaverse, the biology drives them, but also they have physical characteristics that tend to be like alphas are strong and big, Omegas are tiny and femme. You know, you have that like kind of, you know, binary type gender in a world that isn't whatever. Anyway, so you have that in Love Shadow. It kind of flipped that trope on its head, and you have a few other places like that. Like I've read one, and what was it? I can't remember quite right now, but one that had a character that was a strong Omega. So they are very strong. They have different levels of strength in those alpha levels. You can be really strong or really weak, and your physical characteristics and, you know, like whatever, your ability to bond with someone also vary depending on that. But in there, they actually had a very strong Omega that basically knocked out people with their pheromones. Like, it's hilarious. I think it's so funny. But they have a lot of power. So it kind of flips that. They're very beautiful, but they also have a lot of power. So I like that kind of flipping some of these tropes on their head, that, you know, Omegas are not just weak. Like, they can be also really strong. So that would fit, I think, Sci-Fi and Zon on that level, because Sci-Fi is very whipped for his man. And he has that like tender care, and Zon has like that tsundere kind of, you know, alpha thing. He's insecure and he's unsure, but yeah, I can see it. Sorry, that was a really long, convoluted answer.
That's no problem, but that's good. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw a couple more shows from my perspective that could have Omega verses, just to wrap up this segment before we move on to the next one, and maybe you two can jump in with your own. But Tonhon Chonlati is major Omega verse vibes. Like let's be honest here, the show was god awful, and I can only imagine how much more awful the book was. But like, if we had to put that in our Omega verse universe, that would be one of those stories that were just written as a total joke but would make complete sense, right? So that's Tonhon. He's Coming to Me, cute little ghost babies running up and down. That would be a weird concept, but yes, they'd be half ghosts.
Well, it's Omegaverse. What's weird at this point?
Anything is possible. Definitely Love by Chance. Pete and A is 100% Omegaverse. Like, is that even a question? Oxygen, the series, definitely. Oxygen has quite possibly the biggest Omegaverse vibe in this listing. And the last one, this is gonna be the most shocking, but I can definitely see it as an Omegaverse, and a good ass one at that too. I'm giving you one guess. Guess this one. Just one guess. Which show do you think this is?
Okay, just give me a few minutes to think. We've kind of passed by a lot. I don't know.
One guess. Just throw out the first show that you think might be this.
Cherry Magic.
Oh. Well, no, sorry, it's not Cherry Magic, but yes, Cherry Magic is on my list. I was gonna say it after Until We Meet Again, but then we started talking about something else. But it's not Cherry Magic. But yes, Cherry Magic is on my list. Mana, you get one guess.
Bad Buddy?
Which part of Pran is an Omega? I cannot believe you just said that. Well, I mean, technically can be, but like I don't see it. Like he would, if Pat ever dared to get him pregnant before he was ready, he would cut off his left nutsack. I promise you that. Like, but no, okay. So yes, Cherry Magic is on my list, but it's not the show that I was talking about. And yes, though Bad Buddy technically could be an Omegaverse with a very strong-willed Omega, I was actually thinking Manner of Death.
Oh, that's surprising.
Manner of Death. Bun would make a great daddy.
Yeah, he would.
He would be a wonderful sight to behold while pregnant. And I just feel like Tan embodies the characteristics of a soft alpha. A soft alpha with a strong right hand partner.
I'm just gonna interrupt you just for a second. I don't think this morning I woke up and thinking that I'd imagine Tan or Bun, I can't remember which one you said, as a beautiful pregnant man. This was not part of my plan today. And also, as you said this, I've been like, the wheels in my brain started turning, and I have this picture of Tool. Is it Tool? Right. Like pregnant, and I'm just like, yeah, that totally would be a beautiful
pregnant man. I mean, and let me tell you something. I'm pretty sure if somebody presented the idea to him, he would probably be done with it. He would be done. This is the same man that wants to show his ass on TV. He wants to sword fight with his dick in a TV show. Like, if I feel like if you said, "Hey, do you want to shoot a porno right now?" He'd be down for it. Like, he'd be up for it. Like, Toll is a freak. He's a super freak. He's the definition of open. Like, I love him. He would be a beautiful pregnant man, though.
He would, actually.
That would be okay. Somebody write this AU. Like, I'm giving you free ideas here. I would read an mpreg version of Omegaverse version of Manner of Death. Imagine a pregnant bone dodging bullets. Hello.
Oh, that's not very safe. I'm sorry. As a doctor, you'd know that this is not a good idea.
Yeah, but then as a person who doesn't know how to mind his own business, he already got himself into this mess, so he has to figure it out. A unique thing about Max and Toll is that they've always made content. So I always split content into two things: content tailored or specifically marketed and targeted to a more adult-leaning audience, and content specifically tailored and marketed towards a more a younger audience. So most BLs tend to be marketed towards a younger audience. Max and Tall have always done BLs cater to the more adult audience in everything that they do, which I love. So I would love to see them again in another series. I would love to see part 2 of Manner of Death. I feel like they would kill it. But yeah, we strayed a little. L, any final thoughts on any last BLs you think might make a good Omegaverse?
Actually, I have a different question.
Oh, go ahead.
What? Well, I mean, it's similar, but instead of thinking of one BL that sort of fit the genre, or at least some of the characteristic of Omegaverse, what would a BL TV series look like in the Omegaverse?
Oh,
like,
Jesus.
Is this possible? I mean, they could tone down the smut, and make it.
Oh no.
But, well, I mean,
I wouldn't be for
unless
that.
it's a straight up porn, right? Like,
well, no, but here's the thing. Max and Tall do amazing NC scenes without it being porn. So it's not a matter of toning down the smut or taking out the smut. It's a matter of how you present the smut.
Well, I mean, it's still toned down compared to what you get in the mangas. Like, that's what I mean. Like, it has to be, presented a little less vividly or graphically. I'm not sure which one, but yeah, could it be possible? Maybe that's a question that we need to ask our audience. Is it possible that one day we'll get an Omegaverse TV show? So
we're gonna ask that as a poll, guys, so you can look on the Twitter page for that and you can vote. Mana, do you have any BLs that you think present like major Omegaverse vibes? Just like a final 2 or 3.
Yes. So I'm gonna say, because I'm on my blue, it doesn't matter. So yeah, UWMA, that one. 2, I would say 2 Moons 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one, I would say, what did I watch recently? Oh, the Love Mix-Up. Sorry.
Love Mix-Up?
Yeah. It's a Japanese.
No! No!
Wait, I don't know this BL. What is this BL?
It's Kieta Hatsukoi.
Oh, Kieta Hatsukoi?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the one.
That's the one that's happening now.
Yeah.
Oh, that people. Okay. That's why I don't know it, because I'm not watching it. But I've seen the clips online. Definitely.
Yeah. See,
no.
I've seen the cutie in the sweater, and I see the boyfriend. That's an Omega, my love.
Right?
No. I strongly, completely, absolutely disagree.
Okay. Well, that was, but they didn't ask you. They asked me. So.
Okay.
Your choice.
Okay. All right. Cool. So I'm gonna ask these. Okay. So which ones do you think we should have be the 4 that we ask on the definitely Until We Meet Again? Rile up some My Blues, because they're really interactive. All right. So Until We Meet Again. So for the which BL gives major Omegaverse. So Twitter polling gives you 4 options. So Until We Meet Again is definitely one. Kieta Hatsukoi.
Yeah.
Gotta put that one there. I'm gonna throw Manner of Death in there for a little spice. What's the 4th one that you should think I should include in the
Kieta Hatsukoi is so true blue.
Okay, but we're just doing it as a poll.
So which is the next one? I don't want to make it
we
too
will
obvious,
fight
but
to the death.
But also I'm ignoring L right now. I don't want to make it too obvious, but like, how obvious should we make it? What's the next one that we should use? Love by Chance, Oxygen is Coming to Me, Why Are You My Engineer, Tonhan, Cherry Magic, 2 Moons to which one? At Cherry Magic.
Okay.
So I would want to say Fire Tutor, but the Z, San, Zane, C, whatever. That fandom is intense. So
Well, they can intensely up my engagement and kiss my black ass. Cause it's a discussion. And I
just
don't care.
fair warning.
I know how crazy they are. Trust me, I know. But it is what it is. It's okay. But I'm still gonna ask. So I might when we do the poll, we'll think about it again. We'll ask the poll before the episode goes live. So at that point, we can narrow down these 5 options to a definite 4. But I want Manner of Death in there to for a little razzle because people are gonna be like, Manner of Death, Megaverse. What? Okay, all right, and that's gonna. I want that to like cause a like discussion to happen. All right, so going back on track now to wrap us up and to shoot us out. What are just 2 last questions that I have for you guys? What type of Omegaverse content would you say is the best? The full-blown AU novel type where they're full-blown novels with chapters and whole stories, mangas, manhwas, or anime versions, or live action. Well, not live action isn't really a thing yet. So like, anime versions. Which one do you think is the best in your opinion? For me, I like novels because I like really getting into a story. I don't really like mangas. I feel like personally for me, no offense to anyone else, if I have to sit down and look at images and read like 1 or 2 lines skipping on a page, it makes me feel like I'm at a 1 grade, a basic school reading level. It makes me feel stupid. Like, I swear to God, I've never been able to get into manga because of this one thing. My reading comprehension skills are far beyond needing images to get into a story. I just can't. It makes me feel like my brain is melting and leaking out my ears. So personally for me, I love the novel versions of stories. What say you two?
I honestly like it being very digestible. So I actually prefer the mangas because it's easier for me to like. Sometimes I just need like, I don't know. I just need pictures. So like I just like it when it's condensed, so that way I can just like read it real quick, like in between the things that you're doing. You can just pick it up real quick and just, like sit down for like, have a little break and then, get back to whatever it is else you're doing. So I like those.
Oh, okay, cool. Fair enough. Elle?
I like, I'm a big fan of graphic novels, so I like that. The thing that I find annoying is the amount of porn in there. Like, I end up just skipping whole chapters because, again, not a judgment. Like, totally, if people are into it, that's totally fine. But I like the stories, so I think I probably would say more like reading a story than the mangas, just because the mangas concentrate a lot on them having sex all the time, and so you get like maybe 2/3 of the story is them having sex and then only 1/3 of actual character development. So yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Interestingly, no one has said the animes, which there aren't really a lot of mpreg animes unless you're really looking into the deep dark web sphere of things. But yeah, okay.
Oh, I know one.
And okay. Hold on to that. That brings me to the next question. Lay out your recommendations, and Mana, pray, please do tell the people about this anime Omegaverse.
It's called Sex Pistols.
Oh damn! I thought you were gonna go with something. Yes, okay, Sex Pistols. I know that one.
Okay.
Tell the people about it.
So I kind of found it on accident. So like I was just like looking at. Actually, I started with Gigi Romantica. And so I was like on YouTube and stuff, and they were like, how YouTube like sets your algorithm, like if you're watching certain things, it'll just like provide you with like videos that are like it. So then it's like
YouTube was like, Madam was like, oh my gosh.
YouTube
What
read you
were
right
you
that
looking
day.
at?
so it was like underneath, and I was like, oh, what is this? And because I saw like literally the thumbnail was like one of the characters had like ears like a dog and a tail, and I was just like, what is this? And so I clicked on it, and I was just like, oh, well, this is interesting.
Oh, but let's provide some clarification. Sex Pistols, to my understanding,
That's
is
a
not
band.
necessarily. Hello?
There's a band called the Sex Pistols, so I was just making
sorry. sorry, not the band, but Sex Pistols is not necessary. It's not an Omega verse, to my recollection, but it's more just it just has that mpreg aspect to it, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't fall in the Omega verse realm, but it does have the mpreg. So just wanted to squeeze in that little clarification. But yes, so Sex Pistols. Any other recommendations, Mana? You know that YouTube might be throwing your way because you're ratting on yourself.
YouTube knows you.
That's the only one. Really, that was the only one.
That's the only one. Any mangas or manhwas you want to recommend?
Oh yeah, definitely Love Shuttle.
Love Shuttle. Okay.
One of the better ones. Yeah, and then the other one that I was reading recently, actually, it was like something about illusion. The one that you sent me, Al, what was it called? Illusions?
Oh, Love is an Illusion?
Yeah, Love is an Illusion. I started liking that one. It's like about that has an alpha who's like in a rock band. I like that one.
Yeah, it starts a little bit typical, but then it kind of has some nice aspects. And definitely mostly consensual.
Yeah, I'm a big person on consent, so that.
You know what I just realized? Mana is a major C-drama fan, right? We're talking about Omega verses and mpreg worlds and whatever, and we forget to mention the biggest culprit of them all. Let me tell you something. You see, Priest is a weird motherfucker. And you see the Untamed.
What?
Hello?
Don't the
sorry, I might be getting Priest mixed up with somebody else. What's that novelist called? Mao Dao.
Oh, MT. Yeah, I know which one. Yeah, no, those are different. Yeah, those are.
Oh no, that's the name of the book, Madao Jushi.
Oh wait, I have her name here. Mao Zhang Tong Zhao.
And a lot of the Chinese stories also have these like transformation into animals.
Yeah, that's true.
Which, at times can be sort of. And for me, they're a little borderline. They're not they're not true Omegaverse, but there are similitude.
Right. So definitely, The Untamed is a definite Omegaverse where, well, I mean, come on, Wei Jing. I mean, Wei Jing, Wei Wuxian, he might be a little badass or whatever, but he's definitely an Omega. You can't tell me shit. And Lang Wanji is that alpha partner that just does not say one word, but he will blow your back out and blow your brains out if you feel like you want to mess with his man. So like, pick the poison.
Say the opposite.
I'm gonna say something very shocking. I still have not seen The Untamed. Yeah, I know. It's so many episodes. My God, it's like forever.
Only 50 or whatever.
Oh my God.
It's 55 actually. Is it 50 or
55? 55 episode of what? 1 hour? Oh dear God.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I only watched it. I watched the Untamed last year. Towards the end of 2020 is when I got into the Untamed. And I wasn't really feeling it until after episode 10, which someone did already tell me that it's not really going to make much sense to me until after episode 10. And when you get more into it, the things in the early episodes start to make sense. It's just a regular Chinese wuxia setup. It's just long as hell, but it's long. But
you're not selling it right now.
I wasn't intending to sell it. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I was actually trying to sell it. Let me stop. I'm sorry, child.
Sorry.
But yeah, no, it's I can see why it was as popular and still is as popular as it is. And given that the BLs that were, because there was no way that you could misinterpret this as anything but a BL. In addition to that was Wang Yibo's popularity as a K-pop idol, so that brought this to the attention of a different type of audience, which then spread it, it brought the hype. And there was no way it's kind of like Word of Honor, in the sense where there was nothing about it that screamed bromance. These men were in love, Your Honor. There's nothing about it that was a bromance. So there were a couple things in it that really propelled it to the level that it's at in regards to popularity. The same reason why Word of Honor and like Killer and Healer, which unfortunately I still have not watched past episode 1. You guys know why. And like other Chinese BLs would be as popular as they are, because there was no, as for some way they passed to censorship, and there was no way you could mistake these as or take these as romances. They stare at each other more than the actual heterosexual couples in the show do. Nobody looks at somebody they don't like that much. Like, we're not that best of friends for me to want to stare into your soul like that, please. Hello?
Actually, no.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Oh my God. I thought I lost you guys.
No, I was thinking, sorry. I was listening and thinking, and then I forgot to speak. My apologies. But now that you talk about this, I think over Kieta Hatsukoi, which to me is just too cutesy to really see as Omegaverse. So I won't argue. I'm not arguing, but it just doesn't fit my brain for some reason. But Utsukushi Kari, My Beautiful Man.
Oh yeah, that definitely
feels a lot more like he could be. Like, there's one hell of a sub in there. So there's a lot more potential, at least for me.
Okay. All right, cool.
Maybe it's just because I can't see my babies like turned into a wolf pack.
Okay.
My cute little babies.
Okay. All right. So basically, yeah. So it, like, okay, that basically sums up this whole episode. Like, we've covered everything that we could possibly cover with Omegaverse, and why we like it, why we don't, what we like about it, what we don't like about it. We didn't actually talk about what we didn't like about it. Okay, so real quick, so that we don't really take up any don't go over the time. One thing you don't like about Omegaverse, for me, that I don't like about Omegaverse is as much as I'm a fan of the rough housing, I am not one for, and I will never be one for, maybe because of who I am as a person, I will never be one for a weak character. It doesn't matter how and this is just how I feel about everything across the board. I'll enjoy anything. I'll be into anything. I'll read anything. I'll give anything a chance. I'll like what I like and don't like what I like, but I'll give everything a chance. The one thing I don't like is, and I apply this to real life as well, it doesn't matter how submissive you are, it doesn't matter how much of the weaker link you may be, it doesn't matter how damaged or how hurt you are, you can and are capable of being brave when you need to be. And I am not a fan of the damsel in distress stories, because I feel like before you go down, you should never go down without a fight. Even if it means that you die, you take a piece of whoever it is that is attacking you with you. It doesn't matter how much of the weaker you are perfectly capable of defending yourself or die trying. And that's where I stand on that. Like, when you should play dead, you should play dead. Like, be smart about like your battles. But at the end of the day, you have to at least say that you tried. I don't think it's valid if you did not try. Take a piece of them with you. That's just how I feel with that. So I'm not really a fan of the whole damsel in distress, can't do anything to save my life kind of trope. I mean, it's a part of life, it's a part of the stories, and people are people in real life, and people are people who people are people as they are in fiction. But that's just one thing I don't like. Mana?
I would say that, but I would also say that I don't like when it's non, like, I'm a really big person, and it's about consent. Always about consent. You ask all the time. I don't care. You ask if you can hug somebody. You ask if you can do anything to them. Consent is huge, and I don't like when there's not.
Okay. And Elle?
I'm a little bit the same about consent, but also sometimes it doesn't serve the story. So I'm okay with flawed character. What I don't like personally is read stories that are like full out abuse, like really sustained, and characters that are a little dubious but grow. I'm okay with that, kind of. But the really full out toxicity, I just can't read these stories. I think there's just been too much around me, so I would like to keep my entertainment a little lighter.
Okay. All right. And that basically sums up Omega versus any final thoughts? What was that?
That's the wolf pack.
Oh my god. I was like, what's happening here? Okay, so
Elle is losing their mind.
No, I was like, what the hell just happened? Okay, so are there any final thoughts? I'm asking the class. Any final thoughts before we sign off for today?
No, I think we well, I think we covered a lot. And I think we had a really good discussion about something that doesn't really get talked about that much. So I'm very happy.
Okay. And Elle, any final thoughts?
I think it's worth making your own opinion about it, and it's okay not to like it, but maybe just get some recommendation and use. AO3 has a tag system which can be really useful when people tag correctly, where you can actually find some Omegaverse stories and pick what you like or don't like out, or pick you can either choose it or pick it out. So I think it's worthwhile checking some of these stories.
Okay. And my final thoughts are never be afraid of venturing into new waters. Like, if you see people talk about these things online or whatever, if it seems too intimidating based off how they're describing it, do what Elle did. Go and just research it for yourself. You never know. It might be something that you're into, or it might be something that you're not into, or you might not be into some of the stories, but you could get inspiration to, who knows, start writing these stories yourself or drawing it. But never be afraid of just trying new things. Omegaverse is still weird to a lot of people. It's a subgenre for a reason. Things stay subgenres, or things are subgenres when they aren't as popular as other themes. But so if you've never heard of it, give it a chance. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you do, you do. Awesome. Mana, sign us out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and bye.
Bye.
Bye.